and welcome to the Peanut Bread Quarterly Slush Pile. There are so many podcasts, and we are so grateful that you've tuned into this one. What our job is in this show is to have an editorial meeting right in front of you, as it were. So many members of the editorial staff gather together. We look at submissions that we have lightly pre-vetted as making for great conversation on the show, and that's what we're about to do. So I'm Kathleen Volk-Miller, and I'm again grateful and happy to be here. And I'm going to bounce this all the way up to Canada and say hello, Dagne.
Oh, hello. Good morning. Nice to be here. Yeah, this is Dagne Forest, just outside of Ottawa, Canada. Do I have anything terribly newsy? Probably not. I'm going to a board game night this Saturday night, and it's a Raiders of the Lost Ark theme. So I'm about to head back into my childhood. So that's going to be fun.
Is it fancy dress?
Yeah, we're dressing up.
Woo!
We are.
I went to a Raiders of the Ark viewing party at a giant museum with like Lin-Manuel Miranda hosting, and I was shocked to find I did not know that my brother and his wife had Indiana Jones and Marion costumes.
Get out of town. That's awesome.
Are you going as Marion? Do you have the Marion
I am
costume?
going as Marion Ravenwood when we meet her in the tavern in Nepal, and I've got myself all kitted out, ready to go. My hair's the wrong color, but I'm not wearing a wig. I'm gonna rock an older looking Marion. So and so with that, if we picture the giant boulder that chases Indy and Raiders of the Lost Ark, the boulder can then come after you, Jason.
Yes, I should go as the boulder.
That's what I was just thinking. Somebody.
I will go to this party, but I'll be the boulder and I'll be in a giant hamster wheel and I'll chase people. Hamster ball. No, I'm in California. I have been having my summer of travel is I've already been to Texas and Maine and North Carolina, and now I'm in Palm Desert at a wonderful, beautiful place called Desert Rat, where I'm doing a writing residency, and it is fantastic. Oh my God. It is so beautiful and relaxing and hot and amazing. But yes, but I did also just get back from the residency at Warren Wilson in North Carolina, which is how I know Lisa. So I will send this to Lisa.
Hi, everybody. And in a strange twist of fate, I'm not in North Carolina, but I'm in New York City. So Jason and I have switched places.
What?
We're all over the map. I know it's craziness. But I'm very excited to be here with all of you and talking about these really fascinating poems.
That's lovely, but also frustrating that you two can't see one another.
I know.
Remember,
we have to coordinate better, Jason.
But also, I'm such a New Yorker that when I'm traveling and I find out someone else is in New York, I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I were in New York. I love New York.
But just in June, Marion and I were in North Carolina and Charlotte together, and Lisa was in New York that weekend or week as well. So we didn't get to hang out.
Well, I had a very hard time leaving North Carolina and spent a night in an airport hotel and then had to take a Uber to Greenville Spartacus to get my next flight. It was
Spartanburg, not
Greenville,
Spartacus.
Greenville, Spartantown. Okay. Yeah.
Did you get to hear? Did you get to spend a moment in Greenville? I've been hearing really wonderful things about Greenville being very.
No, I took an Uber from an airport to an airport. It was,
okay. All right.
Yes, travel looked a lot like airports.
Right. Yeah, shout out to Greenville and their Hub City Press, which is remarkable. They are doing wonderful independent publishing and literary arts work there. So
nice.
Slushies should check that out.
Nice. A friend of mine just moved to the area, Lisa, and he said that it's a part of the something swamp trail. Have you heard of this?
I have not heard of the swamp
well,
trail.
There's another research project for us and our Slushies, but
yes,
it's apparently a cool many-mile trail of the coolest spots in North and South connected, I think. I'm pretty sure. Not sure. Swamp trail.
Are there alligators? Not going at those alligators.
I don't know. I think all the alligators live in Florida, don't they?
No,
Okay.
they're creeping up.
Everything's creeping up.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's say hey to Jody.
Hey,
Jody, are there
Jody.
alligators where you are?
Currently, no, thankfully. I'm still in Philadelphia as per usual. Haven't seen any alligators recently, so keeping my hopes up that will never happen. Um, but yeah, it's chill here. Everything is as per usual.
Okay.
I'm very excited to be here and see all of you.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm excited too. And I'm especially excited to discuss the work of Janée Baugher. We've got some poems that we're really thrilled that she is allowing us to read today and discuss. And Slushies, you can always go look at our website as well. And I'm going to bounce this back to Lisa so she can tell us a little bit more about their work.
Thank you, Kathy. Slushies, you definitely need to take a look at these poems before you hear our discussion because they have a unique form. They're mostly set up as footnotes in reference to paintings, Andrew Wyeth paintings. And this author, Janée J. Baugher, is the author of a craft book called The Ekphrastic Writer, Creating Art-Influenced Poetry, Fiction, and Nonfiction, which came out in 2020. And she is very interested in writing about art. And in an interview, she said she does not have the talent to create visual art herself, although that's something she would very much love to do. And this is her response, is to write about visual art in a very unique way. And her ekphrastic poems are in a new collection, which will be released in March 2026. And that collection won the Dorset Prize in 2023 from Tupelo Press. So that's the setup of some of the poems that we're going to read today. And just wanted you guys to know that you should check out the visuals before you hear these poems.
Wonderful. And we'll include links in our show notes too. So if you are like driving and listening to this or something else, you can't look right now, you can look later and use our notes to do so. I missed rehearsal, so I'm not sure who's reading. JK, we don't rehearse. You're going to be able to tell that right away. Who would like to read the first poem?
I could do that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Andrew Wyeth's Footnotes to Self-Portrait, 1939. When I saw my pa's portrait of a young artist, I laughed because, first off, he's not young. And his flair for the dramatic. See the waves slamming and the boulders holding the water off? For mine, I chose my studio, where I work cleanly and my terriers keep me honest. Not much is how it seems. I altered the shirt, but the starkness of the movable easel and the palette in the background remained, for it felt like a Juan Miro painting. Grandma Wyeth wanted a writer's son against the advice of Thoreau and Longfellow. Pa fished, hunted, and he climbed trees like a billy goat. He daredeviled his body with such abandon. It's a wonder he's still with us. Like a seawall fierce enough to redirect sea's projection, the great N.C. Wyeth on a precipice, brush in hand, in action himself as he paints himself, painting the scene he stands in. His body on a perch to better get the smell of brine, the mist of waves, the brutality of rocks that surround him in his drying canvas. But me? He didn't rear a dramatist painter or thrill seeker. I already have a fractured body. He can have the soldiers of battlefield and bloodshed, and he can have their cries. Of my using tempera, he told me, you lost your quality. Self-portrait, book of lies, which the mirror reverses. In water, a body refracted, portend, portage, portico. I wonder if I'm trying to present myself for him to better see. With a mirror before his own face, is he capable?
Nice reading,
Great reading.
Dagne.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wow, there's a lot in here. So I think, gosh, for me, it's hard to discuss this without context. Did people hate that?
Oh,
So N.C. Wyeth is his father,
yeah,
right? And N.C.
yeah,
Wyeth, his, unlike Andrew Wyeth, who was known for a very, I think they called it his baby poop palette, right? So very soft
yeah,
colors, the landscapes where he lived, and the people who sometimes appeared in those landscapes and portraits. His father, N.C. Wyeth, was this dramatist, right? And had
yeah.
actors who he painted. They were pirates and sailors and so on. And
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say that NCY is like a little closer to like a sort of Norman Rockwell boy's life adventure sort of Saturday Evening Post mode, whereas
absolutely.
Andrew is much more kind of hyper realist, tiny brushes, little details. Although I went to there's actually
Exactly.
I mean everyone knows I think Christina's World is probably his most famous
Oh yeah. Oh
photography of
yeah.
the girl sprawled out in the grass with the house really far up. But
Yeah.
I actually went to an Andrew Wyeth show at the National Gallery. I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and the whole argument was that he was actually an abstract painter. And so it was only his paintings of windows. I kid you not. This is an entire exhibit of just his paintings of windows and curtains and windows, but making
Really?
this argument that while that he had been unrecognized as having like the same skill in abstraction as his contemporaries, because everyone else had gone off to, abstract expressionism, and he's still doing this like hyperrealism.
Yeah.
The argument was kind of that that was always a misunderstanding of his work, even though I was like, I don't know, guys, like it's kind of hyperrealist. It's like Cézanne's apples, right? I mean, like the beginning of modernism is Cézanne's apples because the apples have the same qualities of paint and abstraction that later kind of emerge more completely.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a
Well,
fan. I like Wyeth. I do.
And then Juan Miro, he's that's very like strong abstract, strong colors, or
very,
surreal, right? Yeah,
very
Yeah.
bold.
Not
Yeah.
mimetic at all. Yeah, there's
right.
nothing mimetic in a Juan Moreau. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also appreciated how, obviously it's footnotes to a painting, and that is indicated in the title. And I think you do need to know that that's a painting that we're talking about. But
Yes.
even if you don't have a lot of familiarity with the painting or Andrew Wyeth, I think what this poem does well is weaves in these biographical facts and kind of the emotional undercurrent between the relationship of Andrew Wyeth and his father, and how that feels to Andrew Wyeth. There's some tension there in what they're doing the same and differently, and the legacy, and how the grandmother wanted a writer as a son, not a painter. And then here we have the grandson who is another painter. And I felt that was very well done, in that you did not necessarily have to have the painting in front of you to understand the work and to feel the emotional pull that's described here.
I'll also say that there's something really interesting happening with research that like there was a time, when I'd be like, I don't know if you use that word. Are you okay with your writer having to look it up? And even like, I don't know, Ashbery famously ended a novel with a word that he was sure his reader wouldn't know because he wanted the reader to close that book and then open a dictionary. Like he sort of
Mm.
liked that, art form. And then for a long time, it's sort of been like, everything's in Google, like, okay, you don't know this foreign word, Google Translate's really good. Like you don't know this detail, fine, Google has it right there for you. But now I'm finding that Google is falling apart. That as I'm trying to find these pieces, because AI is now mediating all of the results, I'm getting this kind of fuzz, this feedback that I'm getting Andrew Wyeth paintings that are being attributed to NC Wyeth, that I'm getting like for the first time in probably 20 years, my search results are mucky. And I'm not trusting what I'm finding. And then when
They're
it's so
terrible. I
yeah,
always leave feedback saying I don't want your AI
yeah,
nonsense. I want real organic search results to real websites.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
wish you could
yeah.
disarm it,
You
make it not
can.
be. You
Can you?
can?
You can turn
Yes,
off AI in Google?
you can when you're putting your search in, you can write your search like Andrew Wyeth self-portrait 1939 and then write minus AI.
Yeah, but like, who's going to remember that? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
great
Thank you
hack,
for that
And
Lisa,
make it a
because
but
face.
yeah,
I did hear that, but I was hoping for a default, just get it out of there. You know what I mean? I don't want
Yeah.
it to be my first hit.
yeah,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I wanted to index that I do feel like there's this really interesting moment of shifting in terms of how we relate to the erudition of work and sort of like the easiness of finding. I mean, certainly I ended up, I mean, I know enough about Wyeth that I can sort those search results. But if I really knew nothing, um, I would have gotten some very confusing things.
yeah. And you're not prepared to dig deeper because
Yeah.
sometimes you have to know how to dig deeper. Exactly, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, circling back, Lisa, I totally agree with you. Like, I feel like the tension in the relationship with his father and living up to kind of the big man, because his father sounds like he was like, whoa, what a figure to try and live up to. And the fact that Wyeth picked up a brush and was going to be a visual artist as well is like, gee, yeah. And
Yeah.
that so comes across.
And not for nothing that the only direct quote in this poem is the father's critique of the son's method in its footnote number 11 of using my tempera. He told me, quote, "You lost your quality." It's
Yes,
like,
Devastating.
that's
yes,
the thing
Yeah.
yeah,
that
I
Oh,
registers.
know, I know.
yeah.
That's like, yeah,
The
sticking
knife.
the knife in, sticking the knife in.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
absolutely.
What do we think about? Because I mean, the footnotes sort of structure their own form, right? I mean, it's not a stanza, it's not a line break, it's a footnote. Like it kind of has this, quality to it. And yet it's being sort of repurposed for the poetic structure. Um, how's everyone responding to that?
But I think it's really interesting because it's like, what's the purpose of a footnote, right? So the footnotes often used to indicate a source, but they're also used to flesh out information,
Yeah.
right? Point to a more fulsome picture, as it were, right? Because what's even the point of a source? And they're used to cite authority, of course, to support a statement. I find the whole notion of the footnotes here as a sort of apparatus to give the younger Wyeth strength against his father in a sense. It was really interesting to me. It kind of felt like a bulwark in this context to me. What do others think of it?
If,
Well,
oh, sorry.
I don't mind it at all. I love footnotes. I always read them. Um, David Foster Wallace's footnotes were as important as the text that you were reading, right? Like, talk about elucidating. They were almost everything, right? So I dug that. I dug the approach. The premise does not fail for me. The premise itself, I think, is pretty fun.
And I would say, Jason, as you talk about it as a poetic structure, when you termed it that way, which is of course appropriate, I noticed that the numbered lines, there are 14 numbered lines, which of course made me think of a sonnet. And then I look at line number 8, you know, and there's a turn there because we're talking about the Father's work, and then line number 9 begins, but me, you know, so it turns to the Son and the Son's work. So, I mean, I think if you look at it as kind of a footnoted sonnet, which is wild, you know, that's kind of an interesting way to experience this poem.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I mean, I think of the footnote as being so much about an interruption, a sort of, you know, a side route, a kind of detour before you come back. And so it's interesting to kind of have everything as an interruption. That the whole
Exactly.
poem is interruptive. And so I do think I had this sort of like sense of like, is the main text the painting? Like it's interesting that like your main text would be your marginalia.
Well, and then you have the footnote number 12, which is itself interrupted 4
Yeah.
times. You know, there's 4 footnotes to footnote number 12, which is also pretty interesting.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
it. I love where that we end there. And the footnotes for the footnotes are really wonderful, I think.
Yeah, it's a great moment. But I think that's a really interesting question, Jason. I mean, yes, I suppose in a sense the painting is the main text. I mean, arguably their relationship is the main text too, right? You could choose, like pick either one.
Jody, do you want to say anything?
Sure. I agree with everything that's been said. I love the footnote format. I think it really lends a sense of character to the words. And I thought it was interesting that someone mentioned earlier, the poet said that she doesn't feel she has a talent for visual art, but she loves visual art. And so instead she writes about it. But she's created a poem that's very visually interesting, and it's very pleasant just to look at even before reading it. I was struck by just how it looks on the page, and I was already interested before I even got into the words themselves. So I was impressed.
That's a great way to say it, Jody. And
Yeah.
I feel like I see that. I'm super intrigued as soon as I see it. We do have 2 more.
Yes, we do.
Do we
We
feel like we
vote?
I feel like we just started scratching the surface. We like barely even
I
talked about
know. I know.
That's true. We talked much more about the form than the poem.
Well,
Spend a couple more minutes.
and of course, all
What?
3 poems are in this format, right?
Right.
So in a sense, the whole conversation will continue to allow us to explore the larger.
We can vote and then move on.
Yeah.
Because they're all about Wyeth. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready to flip thumbs? 1, 2, 3, flip. Okay, it's in. It's in. So we're 1 out of 3 and very happy to, and let's see who's going to read next.
I can read the next one.
Thank you, Lisa.
Andrew Wyeth's Footnotes to Night Shadow, 1979. I come blank to every blank canvas. For this one, I retained Helga. We met as we always did in the Kerners upstairs. She and I both had our exhaustions. Her body was stiff, and I couldn't blame her. The bed was bowed in the middle, and lying down in a room where the only other person in it is a rubberneck over you has got to be disturbing. I'm washed up. I'm done. I'm exhausted. I may never paint again, I thought, as I regarded her repose and then began sketching. Sketching helps everything. In a flash, it was Pa, in his casket, his eyes shut and sunken in. A shadow was draped half over his face, as if curtains had already been drawn around his life. I stared down at his chest. I waited. Finally, the chest rose. I watched for the next cycle. Nothing. Were my eyes deceiving me? I could wait longer. I could will the lungs to work. I looked back at his face. I leaned in. I placed my hands on his cheeks. When I rose up, I could see an errant shadow across his neck, though the light source seemed confused. It was as if his head and body were separate. What had happened to his body? I had never considered what damage the train had done. A decapitation, with them placing NC's body back in order, seemed plausible. I stood over him. He remained unmoved. I bent down. I was breathing over my father's face, breathing for us both. I think I said, "Come on, you bastard, open your eyes." I wanted to crawl in next to him. His lips were pale and chapped. This is my chance. I should kiss Pa, one last kiss from me, the youngest and most favorite, from me, his brightest pupil. Suddenly, his eyes flung open. I recoiled, stumbled back, and screamed. Helga and I burst into laughter. We laughed and laughed until I was crying and didn't know who for.
Nice read, Lisa.
Wow, wow, wow. So
Yeah.
this one, a linear narrative, right? This is a prose piece in many ways. Hmm.
Yeah, the
I,
story is fantastic. I mean, do we know if the sort of him having the vision of the model as his father? I mean, the thing about his father being killed in the car accident or the train accident is true.
Yeah, he got stuck on the tracks and had a young niece, I think, in the car with him, and they were both killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so is that a true story? You're asking Jason that he had this experience in
Like, yeah, is
doing.
there like a memoir or like a
Yeah,
where
yeah,
he recounts seeing his father as he starts to paint? Because it doesn't have to be true, but it's an amazing story.
whenever
yeah,
Mary and I discuss art, I always say I want to get stuck there. I want to keep looking and looking and looking into the painting, right? And what I loved about this piece is how I moved that way as well. Like I'm watching Helga and the speaker come into this room and be exhausted and, feeling their ennui. And then he starts to sketch. And then I'm sorry, the speaker goes into that memory of seeing Pa. And I mean, that was just absolutely suckered me right in. I was all the way in. I loved walking in deeper and deeper with the speaker.
yeah, yeah. No, and this is a very dark, shadowy painting. So again, if we consider the source text, that this is in response to, like, I could believe that this really happened. So it's also got a ring of authenticity to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, the actual fact of the biography doesn't matter as much, whether this was Andrew Wyeth's experience in painting, if he transposed his father's body onto Helga's. I think it is,
Form, yeah,
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 it is so well described. It feels true, even if it is not true. And the other thing I wanted to say about these poems, and I think this is true of all of them, is that it's so rare to not have a first person narrative where the speaker is actually the poet. And
That's true.
I think
Yeah.
this is,
yeah,
pretty fascinating how deeply this poet has embodied this persona of the painter, it's like taken it on. And it feels true to me, so I think that authenticity reverberates throughout these poems.
You know, I agree. I thought for me, it was almost like the story told another story, told another story. I didn't know if he was literally decapitated or the dead body just felt like that to him, right? The body and the head feeling so separate. I absolutely didn't think it happened in real life because I thought it was metaphorical and just yet another like imaginary escape the speaker was going into.
I think having the interruptions for me worked more effectively in this poem than the other poem because of the linearity of it. So that as I was kind of moving from each break to break, and I think I'm still, I think I haven't really wrapped my head around it being footnotes. Like I'm still sort of looking for a poetic line divided by like some other kind of break. But yeah, I really enjoyed the movement through this one. It felt the break was enough to keep me excited as I was moving through the narrative.
Mm. And I really like that move in the fourth footnote or line or stanza. I'm washed up, I'm done, I'm exhausted, I may never paint again. I thought as I regarded her repose and then began sketching. And then we get that shift into and sketching helps everything. And so you really do feel like you're in this artist's skin and kind of seeing where these other thoughts and emotions might be coming from. That vulnerability, I just really love that.
And it's interesting that, the painter's got to get over his imposter syndrome, right? I'm never going to paint again.
Yeah.
And yet, the thing that he goes to is again wrangling with his father, and right. And we've just seen in the first poem that it's the father's legacy that he's constantly pushing against in his work. And this is like the actual embodiment of the dead father, and and looking so closely at it. And then at the end, it's kind of weird that like you start with this I guess he's decapitated maybe, and in line
Yeah.
14, um breathing over my father's face, breathing for both of us,
Mhm.
and you know wanting the father to reanimate, uh and then wondering if he should kiss him,
I
but
know,
then
I
being
know.
horrified when the eyes fly open. So it's kind of like this tension between, do you want this decapitated corpse to become alive again, or not?
Lisa, it makes it really feel like an Ars Poetica to me because it's so much about process, right? And these things that a visual artist grapples with are the very same things that a writer or a poet grapples with on the page. And yeah, yeah, and this kind of animation of things that were dead to us or lost to us and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what I do love about this poem is that sense of Wyeth working in the middle of a moment when he seems irrelevant. That, he's sort of a Nepo baby. His dad is like this super famous illustrator. All of the energy has moved to all these other styles, and he's still like doggedly committed to, this. And like in this painting that's being referenced, Helga in Repose, like it's her braids. I mean, and that's what the next poem is about. But it's like
Yeah.
he's so fascinated by texture. I mean, it's almost
Mm,
like Whistler. It's like, this return of this mimetic version of a painting, but it's hyper concerned with the aspects that that abstraction would tend to focus on in terms of like color, shading, interaction. And so I find it really moving to just kind of like this portrait of work in the face of being ignored, feeling sidelined, feeling, both having the attention of being someone famous's son, but also having the belief in your own work and doing something different, and then also being, do you keep doing the work even if no one's paying attention?
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
We should also note that the first poem that we discussed was painted in 1939, and this poem's painting that is referenced is painted in 1979.
Yeah. 40
So
years.
interesting that like within that time frame, the painter's concerns are still so similar, right? Still trying to escape his father and his father's influence.
Jody, do you want to say anything?
I don't have much to add. Yeah, I did enjoy the linearity of this compared to the first one. It did feel a little bit less, like the footnote format felt a little bit less convincing because of that. It feels a little bit more like these are annotations, if that makes sense. And I guess a footnote could be a form of annotation if you want to think about it that way. But I still don't think that made the poem itself less convincing.
Do we want to vote on this one then?
Let's go ahead. Let's vote on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Have we got our Kathy counting?
Oh, Kathy was voting via text, but 1 second. Oh, the dramatic tension. Oh, okay. Lisa, what's that?
Are we voting? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Let's
okay.
vote.
All right, cool. Oh, okay.
We didn't have a count, so we were lost.
It did. I hadn't counted. Lisa's hand got tired.
Sorry for keeping us in suspense, you guys.
Sorry. Yes, it's in. It's in. All right. Okay, we've got a final one, and we have Jason, who's going to be voluntold to do it.
Oh, I love being voluntold. All right. Andrew Wyeth's Footnotes to Braids, 1979. Asking anyone to model is raising hell. Where my father worked from live models and costumes with props and invented scenes, I want more than what eyes see. Friends sit for me, but only to satisfy my initial sketches and measure mood. After dismissing them, I often don't factor them in at all. But today with Helga was different. I just wanted to make a record of the way she looked, because I had been away in my imagination. Her profile and downcast eyes, reddish hair middle parted and in pigtail braids, wool turtleneck, black background, nothing else. I waded in every pore and freckle, took on every crease and shadow. I didn't ask what was on her mind. Watching her chest as it rose and fell was plenty. I don't think I caused Helga's problems, but I didn't help much.
Nice, thank
Nice,
you.
Jason.
We should probably note that in some places in this poem, the words are in italics as if they are direct quotes from some other text, maybe a autobiography of Andrew Wyeth, but we don't know that to be sure. But that's what I thought was maybe they are his exact words.
Yeah, or a journal or something. Yeah, exactly. I always go down the rabbit hole with these things because I'm so interested in them, and I'm a Wyeth fan too, and so I did want to throw out that Decoder Ring with Willa Paskin did an episode on Wyeth, the Great Helga Hype, which I think we should put in the show notes. It's a great listen to some of the brouhaha around this very long-standing relationship with his neighbor, who was also his model, Helga.
And were they lovers? Is that also true, or am I just making that up?
Well,
or is it unknown?
I would say that what I have read makes that seem uncertain. But equally, it's not like I've read all the biographies and so on. So I'm not sure is the honest answer, Lisa. But certainly what I came across made it seem like, who knows?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I do know this painting. I have seen this one before, and I think it is interesting in the footnote number 8, I waited in every pore and freckle, took on every crease and shadow. It is such a photorealistic portrait that seems like an accurate description of what the painter's experience would have been.
Yeah, I love the idea of wading in pores and freckles.
Yes.
Yeah. Made me realize how different portraiture can be approached too by different painters. And I say this because I've come off a couple of years of being obsessed by the self-portraits that the British-German painter Frank Auerbach did at the end of his life, which frankly was like some of the best work of his career in his 90s. And I don't wading in every pore and freckle like that would just not apply to Auerbach. That wasn't his approach. He was looking for something quite different, and he actually destroyed every day's work and started afresh until he finally got what he was looking for, out of multiple sittings. But the spirit of wading in the pores and freckles would still be true. So although I think from a technique perspective, but and also just in terms of how he approached the canvas, I think I'm contradicting myself, but it's an interesting point to have followed. But yeah, I think in spirit it was the same, but I got the sense that as artists they came at this very differently. Yeah. It's interesting how much shorter this one is.
For me, it doesn't quite have the same energy and tension as the previous two poems. And I almost wonder if it's missing some of that grappling with the father's legacy.
Yeah.
And this is much more of a straight up trying to just not that I should say just, but imagine what it would be like to paint this, right? The speakers projecting themselves into Andrew Wyeth and
Mm.
directly telling us what it was like to paint this portrait
Yeah.
with nothing else going on, right? And the other ones were more complex.
Yeah, I really liked the intimacy. I liked that it was a much tighter piece and that it kind of stayed in a much narrower both time frame and relationship, and that sort of like the intensity between the two of them, and kind of also the way in which she is and isn't there, the way that she's kind of a cipher for him, the way that like I mean, it's more explicitly enacted in the previous poem where, she's replaced in his hallucination by the father. But in this one, it's fast. I thought it was a really beautiful representation of kind of like needing someone, but also putting them to your own purposes.
Yeah, I guess the spareness of the poem also mimics the spareness of the painting.
Yeah.
Like tight is as similarly tightly focused.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the sound of thinking is what you're hearing now, Slushies. We're still here.
I found it hard to read. I mean, not hard to read in the sense that, any sentence was, and that the syntax wasn't smooth or that there was a lack of clarity, but just in terms of like the way it kind of moves from one unit to the next. What did you find when you were reading it out loud for other poems, other people who read the poems out loud?
I found the other poems the one I read flowed very well. It wasn't interrupted or stopped. It seemed
Yeah.
like one thing followed the next.
Yeah.
That was different than your experience, Jason. You didn't feel.
Yeah, I found it a little choppy, I guess. I wasn't sure how long to pause between each unit. I wasn't really sure like how the footnotes wanted me to engage them. And I think that might be part of the project that, like if you encounter something unfamiliar, you're kind of asking the reader to figure it out, to kind of go with you. And so I'm not just saying that was like a bad thing where I was like, I'm not sure. It felt like kind of like part of the structure. But yeah, I was a little unsure of how to exactly move through the poem.
And I guess the other difference in this text is that in the previous poems we had Wyeth was using models to paint other images, and we hear that that's how his father also worked, and that he was using, in the middle poem, he was using Helga as his father's body. But this is a shift in that he's painting the model directly. The painting is of Helga herself, but it does seem that he doesn't have access to her interiority. There's still that limit of, instead of painting soldiers or using someone else's body to represent the father's body, he's trying to actually paint the person herself, and still is coming up at the limit of, I don't think I caused her problems, but I didn't help much. He doesn't have the sense of who this person actually is.
And also, I used to be an artist model. Um,
No way.
yeah, there were a couple of years where I made some extra cash by being naked in poses for classrooms full of people or individual artists. I'll tell you my salty joke later, but off the air. But no, it was really interesting because you are not there in this like kind of very real sense. Like you're a surface. And of course, like it's completely unnatural to stand in the exact same position. It was like doing yoga, for like
Yeah.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
And of course, with breaks. But and if it was some classes gave me like very easy poses. The best one, I'd be sitting and reading and it'd be like, great. But it is a really interesting thing. And then you walk around the room and you see what people have painted. Because you're not there, like you're there and you're not there, like you're a surface. Um,
You're like a catalyst or a spark, really,
yeah.
because it's going to be what the artist is going to take from what they see and what they can turn that into. And that's what's so interesting about the process of having a live model, because yeah, you're both essential and irrelevant at the same time. And I think that comes across here.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have the added layer of the public perception and gossip about their relationship or perceived relationship. I mean, a lot of portrait painters have long-standing relationships with sitters and models where that might be the case. But I mean, I've never known of one quite as famous as this one. So it definitely adds a layer that wouldn't appear in another ekphrastic just about any portrait. So yeah. Hmm.
Are we ready to vote? Or are we still thinking?
I'm ready to vote. I don't know about you
Let's do
guys.
it. Let's vote.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we counting, Kathy?
Wait. I also have to put it in. You know what? I'll turn my camera on quickly. Put my fist up there. Hang on. That'll be faster.
Oh, the tension. It's
Yeah.
unbearable. 1, 2, 3.
Uh-huh.
We can't hear you,
Kathy,
Kathy.
you're
Oh,
muted.
Kathy.
sorry for that extra dramatic tension, but that one did not come in. And so 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as the song says. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to Janée for letting us read this work. And we're thrilled. I'm thrilled. I can't speak for everybody, but I think they are, because we were all voting yes, yes. I'm thrilled to publish what we are publishing. Does anybody have anything to add?
Yes, we'll be sure to add links to many of the other sites and interviews and information that we discussed in the show notes. And of course, the link to the poems, which Slushies you definitely should check out so you can see them for yourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really look at those ones. I found them very challenging. It feels kind of an exciting structure.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Slushies, tell us how we're doing. Tell us what you think of these poems and anything else, the show, whatever you'd like. And keep reading. Thank you. Woohoo!
Woohoo! Bye, everybody.
Bye.